Hi everyone! So at this point, most of us know that Star Eater Scales allows for hunters to output some of the highest damage in the game. And at least for me, I always just put it on with either Golden Gun or Gathering Storm, and never really bothered to create a build around it. Well, today that is going to change. This Arc Star Eater's build will provide plenty of survivability, add clear potential, and boss damage that will work perfectly for raids and dungeons and just general activities throughout the game. So, without wasting any more time, let's see what makes this build work. So starting off, the reason I picked the Arc Super for my Hunter is largely just because the Gathering Storm Super works perfectly with the Star Eater scales. And not to mention, mods this season will allow it to shine over other supers in the game, just considering how the perks like Lightning Strikes Twice and Shock and Awe work perfectly with the Arc subclass. The exotic you want to use for the build is of course the Star Eater Scales. Now what does the Star Eater Scales do exactly? Well, it has the exotic perk Feast of Light. You gain additional super energy from orbs of power you pick up. While your super energy is full, picking up an orb of power overcharges your super, causing you to gain a burst of healing when you cast, and a bonus to your super damage. At maximum overcharge, you also gain an overshield. For the weapons, you can use whatever you want. I highly recommend arc weapons of some sort, as this will work well with your subclass, but overall, it'll really just depend on what activity you're playing, as certain dungeons and raids require more long-range weapons to use. For the arc subclass, make sure you're using the Gathering Storm super ability. For your dodge, it really depends on the activity. If you're just wanting to deal boss damage, you might want to only use Marksman's Dodge, but if you want to make sure you have plenty of ad clear with this build, make sure you're using Gambler's Dodge. For your melee ability, use Combination Blow, and then for your grenade, it honestly depends on whichever one you like the most. I have Pulse Grenade on, but Storm Grenade's also just a really good grenade in general that you could switch out if you want to. For the aspects, I'm using Lethal Current. After dodging, your next melee attack has increased lunge range, jolts the target, and creates damaging aftershock. Damaging any jolted target with melee attacks also blinds them. This is just a great ad clear ability, as you're able to jolt targets and cause plenty of AoE damage. The next aspect I'm using is Flow State. Defeating a jolted target makes you amplified, allowing you to work with this aspect in order to get you amplified quite often. For my fragments, I'm using Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. I just felt this was important to use, as survivability and endgame activities is key, and for Hunter, while you're dodging around and getting up close to enemies, it's important to have that damage resistance. The next fragment is Spark of Amplitude. Rapidly defeating targets while you are amplified creates an orb of power. As you'll be amplified quite often with your aspects, being able to generate the orb of power will allow you to stack up your Star Eater skills to get it to max stacks quicker. I'm also using Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace, and since you'll be able to jolt targets pretty often using your aspects, you'll be able to get Ionic Traces pretty quickly. My last fragment is Spark of Magnitude. Your lingering arc grenades have extended duration, but if you really wanted to, you could switch this out with Spark of Shock. Your arc grenade jolts targets. Moving on to mods, on my helmet, I'm running a Heavy Ammo Finder mod, along with the Hands-On mod, gain bonus super energy on melee kills, as this build does evolve around melee kills when you don't have your super up. And lastly, I'm using a Siphon mod of my choice. On my gauntlets, I'm using a Firepower mod. Your grenade final blows create orbs of power. A heavy-handed mod. Your powered melee final blows create orbs of power, just giving you plenty of options to generate orbs of power in order to get your Star Eater's scale up to max stacks. And Focusing Strike grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a melee attack. For my chest piece, I'm running a charged up armor mod. Increases the maximum number of stacks of armor charge you can carry by 1. I'm also using a resistance mod of my choice. I think it's important to have at least one resistance mod on for this build, as it helps you with your survivability. And lastly, I have a reserve mod of my choice on. On my legs, I'm using a Innervation mod. Reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. The last main ability you want to try to get up is your grenades, so that's why I have this one here. I also have a Better Already armor mod. Your health begins to regenerate immediately after picking up Orb of Power, allowing you to once again have that healing and survivability in endgame activities. And lastly, I'm using a Weapon Surge mod of my choice. Lastly, on my cloak, I'm using the new Powerful Attraction mod. Automatically collect nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability. What this means is that whenever you dodge, and you should have your dodge up fairly often, you'll be able to auto-collect any orbs of power close to you, allowing you to gain your Feast of Light stacks much quicker, and ultimately getting you to max out your Star Eater skills much easier. I'm also using a Bomber mod, reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. And finally, Distribution, reduces all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets. So let me know down in the comments below what you think about the Star Eater's build. I really just wanted to put a build together, just because for the longest time I never really did. Anyways, thanks for watching and have a good day.